and welcome to Thinking Out Loud. I'm Gloria, your host, and today with me in the studio I have Ellen Martins and Tess George, who are adjunct faculty at UMass Lowell. Ellen is in the music department, and Tess is in the business department. And they are also our adjunct faculty union reps. And I say our because, full disclosure, I am also adjunct faculty there in political science and a member of the union. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here, Gloria.
All right. And I know we're actually in the middle of negotiations at the moment, but a lot of people don't know a lot about the history of unions and may have a lot of misconceptions about unions, so you might want to address those questions.
Absolutely. Well, to start with, I've been in a union since I was 16, and I actually thought that I knew a lot. There was everything there that you needed to know. My dad was a union president is a local of the American Federation of Musicians, and like I said, since 16 I've been a union member, but I had no idea what a task it is to have a union, to begin a union. I'd always been part of mature unions, ones who have been around for a while, who have contracts that are 152 pages long. So the reason you unionize is that there's enough people within one group of employees that realize things don't seem fair anymore, whether it's a wage or working conditions or job security. And at UMass Lowell, when we unionized, it was, I think, all three. We hadn't had a raise in 10 years. There were no offices to discuss any information with students. Those are the working conditions, and that really does affect our students. So enough people got kind of, I guess upset is a good word, or mobilized that the UAW were approached. Everyone knows the UAW is the United Auto Workers, but we call them the United Academic Workers. Well, because they represent over 40,000 academic employees throughout the United States, including folks at NYU and Columbia, and they not only adjunct faculty, but also grad students, TAs, RAs, and they have a great track record. And most importantly, they have been fantastic. So we had great backing as far as our UAW. However, in order to even get to be a union, it's not 3 or 4 people saying, all right, let's unionize. It's called, you have to get more than 50% of the members, of the potential members, to sign a card saying, yes, I want to be a member of a union. Yes, you have the right to bargain on my behalf. So in our case, with 570 or so members, that was almost 300 people. Now, I wasn't part of the union, I wasn't president, I wasn't even part of the team yet, but Tess did all that with a bunch of people.
Right. So it was me and 3 other people. And and what we needed to do was, it was difficult because maybe people don't know, or maybe they do, that adjunct professors have really different schedules. They're there, they're not there. Many of them teach at 2 or 3 different colleges. So we had to find out where people were, and then we had to go find them at that place and talk to them and ask them if they would be interested in signing a card. So that took quite a long time.
As you say, they didn't have offices that you could go to.
That's right. That's right. And it's not like you could get even 4 or 5 adjunct professors in one place at one time, because they're all over the place. And like, as you say, there isn't an office, there wasn't an adjunct office, they didn't have offices in the departments, so we had to wait outside their classroom and try to catch them and see if they wanted to sign and talk to them about the union. So that took a long time. But it wasn't too hard to, it was a lot of time, it was a lot of work, just logistically, but it wasn't too hard to get people to sign because, as Ellen said, we hadn't had a raise in 10 years. And, as Ellen said, we were pretty much on the forefront of unionizing, but now many adjunct faculty, as you know, are unionizing. And that's because the working conditions are just so bad, and because people care so much about being a good teacher. I think they want to be a good teacher, and they're looking for an environment in which they can do that.
So we are the youngest faculty union in the whole UMass system. Everyone else unionized somewhere around the late 70s, early 80s. But at that time, our part-time here at Lowell, we were not incorporated in that. So we organized in 2010. We wrote our collective bargaining agreement that most people refer to as a contract. And after 15 months of negotiating, we ended up with a very successful agreement on, I think it was May of 2012. Mm-hmm. And that was actually the easy part, is what we found out. Only the fact that it was such a change in culture for our members, for the administration, that we've been working diligently at implementing so many of the contracts provisions, such as having offices. We now have offices, and that will come up later. We did get pay increases. You have a great story regarding one of our history folks, because when you look at what's the tangible, what did our members notice right away?
Yeah, just just in terms of, Gloria, that the pay is very low, especially for people with with graduate degrees. And I think a lot of times people don't really understand how low it is and what a difference that makes in people's lives. So after we won our first contract and people got an increase, one of our union members stopped me in the hallway and was really, honestly, he was like really almost close to tears. And both he and his wife are adjunct professors, and because of that raise, their daughter could have piano lessons. And their daughter was such a good pianist, and they felt so bad about not being able to provide her with that. So it made that difference for them. But there are other adjuncts, as people know if they follow the news, who are on food stamps.
Right.
It's that kind of a wage. There are adjuncts who have no health insurance because UMass Lowell doesn't offer it, and because for whatever reason they don't qualify. Some of us, several of our adjuncts qualify for subsidized health care because their income is so low. So it makes a difference. But I think everybody can really identify when you want to provide something to your child, and you feel like you followed the rules. You went to school, you tried hard, you're hardworking, and then you find yourself in a situation where you don't have health insurance and really, really low wages.
Right. I've been fortunate because I have a full-time job.
Right.
But I know many of them who are running around to 2, 3, 4 different colleges and not close by either.
Right.
So
Right. They're called the highway.
The Road Scholars.
The Road Scholars.
The Road Scholars.
Right.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. But I think as schools, across the nation, more universities are hiring less and less full-time tenure-track professors, and they're kind of flipping. In the past 40 years, that those percentages have kind of flipped from, I think, roughly, right? We would have roughly maybe 70% full-time tenured track and 30% adjuncts, and now that's flipped in a lot of situations.
yeah, there's actually a quote from a post that you had about that. Let's see if I can find it here. In 1969, almost 80% of college faculty members were tenure or tenure track. Today, the numbers have essentially flipped, with 2/3 of faculty now non-tenure and half of those working only part-time, often with several different teaching jobs.
Right.
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 So when you do need to work that much, it gets in the way of the research that you're going to do. It gets in the way of even being able to sit down and talk with your students. It gets in, and that is part of our job. Whenever we got told at some point during our previous negotiations that you don't have office hours, adjunct faculty do not get paid for office hours, I have to say the majority of our people probably do, whether it's not formally giving those hours, but they definitely are giving the hours to the students, because we have some of the most hardest working students around. That's what I contend. I'm in the music department. Our kids are never done working. And in my previous role as not only teaching what I teach on a one-to-one, but I had a broad administrative sort of role, I got to know all the students. And so the students would come in and they would need to talk. And that is part of being a faculty member, is mentoring. And seeing as the majority of our members teach the freshman and sophomore years, it's imperative that we have good working conditions. So What we have ended up providing, and I'm not sure if this works with mature unions or not, but I'm the one who mans the union email, and we get so many questions and we have social events. Many times I think we're kind of like the clearinghouse, and people are just glad that I'm not in this alone. I have someone that I have go-to people. So I think we're the go-to people. And sometimes it's the real questions about unemployment, because everyone qualifies for unemployment during the summer because we have no guarantee of being rehired. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, that's changing. That's changing a little bit. Some people, a lot of people have been denied unemployment, so it's really difficult. You know, which sometimes people say, well, if you don't like it, why don't you quit? Right, and sometimes you hear that, and one of the, there's two things. First of all, right, we love teaching and we love students, but the other thing is, really, if you really are, what we call a full-time adjunct, it's pretty hard to quit, because if you start looking for a job in September, maybe you're teaching at 3 or 4 different schools. You might have 150 or 175 students at that point. Let's say you get offered a job in October. How are you going to walk out on 200 students?
You're not going to do it.
Nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to walk out on 200 students. So you try to look for a job between the end, in between semesters and the holidays. It's really hard. It's hard to find another job, or you quit. You don't qualify for unemployment, and you're in a terrible job market trying to find a job. So even though I know that the majority of people who are adjuncts do it because they love it, there's also this economic reality that it isn't something that you can just easily walk away from when people say, well, if you don't like it, why don't you just quit? Once you start that, you get in that system, it is a little challenging. But one of the things that we've been working on lately is looking at the differences between the different campuses. We've been looking at the similarities where students actually pay pretty close tuition from Lowell to Boston to Amherst. A little bit more at Amherst. I think it's something like I don't know, $32 more, $35 more from Lowell to Boston, and a little less than $2,000 from Lowell to Amherst. But the adjunct instructors in Amherst and in Boston start out at about 40% higher than the adjuncts in Lowell. And the adjuncts in Boston and Amherst have health benefits, and they have job security. And, we don't have any health benefits, and so far in our negotiations, we haven't been able to make any kind of headway in getting any kind of health benefits for anyone, even people who teach, 3 or 4 courses, which
each semester
is a lot, which is a lot, which is really almost like a full-time commitment. So we're trying to work right now and say, why is that? Why is the tuition is similar, but yet the conditions for the adjuncts are so different? And I think you had some really interesting stuff you found out about administrative costs too.
Right, but before we go there, our first contract expired as of July 2015, and we've been bargaining since May, so I think that's 10 months or so. So we are really entrenched in just all this data, as well as I think we've had something like 25 or 28 meetings with the university, and we have had umpteen meetings together with the whole negotiating team.
We're tired of each other.
You could say we're really tight, and then other times we're not. It's an amazing experience. That's all I can say. But we are trying to improve what our contract lacked. In fact, within the first week of signing that contract, we already were making a file, or I was already making a file of what could do better. And with the changes we're looking at are clarifying language, where there's been a rub in the last 3 years of interpretation of, we think it means this, the university may think it's this, and having to hammer that out. So we're trying to make that better. And just for the record, our contract right now is only 34 pages long, but I'm sure we'll get up to the 100 or so.
I know Greg Gloria
Oh, yes,
Right.
Political
yes,
science,
Yeah.
yes.
was saying that you've learned a lot since that first contract. You
Oh,
didn't
my
realize how much
goodness.
you didn't know.
Right, right.
Right. And Greg was one of the original
was-
founders
Yes.
as well. Yeah.
I
Right.
think he's the one who approached me after one of my classes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So okay, so I'm the data girl of the of it. So I will quote from fall 2014. We taught 700 courses, we being adjunct faculty. And the best guess estimate, and it is totally a ballpark because I have not counted, the registrar's office will be giving me this data, but that's 700 courses out of about 1,200. Okay, we have that, so that's roughly 60% of the courses. So the budget, the instructional percentage of the budget is 30%. And our adjunct portion of that is 10%. To put it another way, out of the $348 million budget that we have at UMass Lowell, we cost 3.3%. But yet we're doing 60% of the courses. That doesn't feel quite fair, is I think somewhat of the cost. Now, when you brought up how is that money being spent if it's not being spent on the people who are doing the fundamental mission of the university, which is teaching? I can tell you, according to the American Institutes for Research and the New England Center for Investigative Reporting, between 1987 and 2011, UMass Lowell and UMass Boston, the student enrollment went up about the same percent, in the ballpark of 25%. Because we all know we had a huge influx of students. It's been amazing. However, at the same period, UMass Boston administrative costs went down 2%. In UMass Lowell, went up 135%. That's just the administrative costs. What is interesting to note is that UMass Boston, the professional staff costs went up 133%, which sounds a lot, but when you compare it to UMass Lowell, it went up at the same time period of 297%.
So, one of the things I think about sometimes is, a few years ago, my daughter goes to UMass Amherst, by the way, but and we love UMass Lowell, and I know you do. We all do.
Yes.
But a few years ago, I took my daughter around to all these different colleges, and you know how you do, and people ask questions and all that kind of thing. And I think, one of the questions that parents never ask is, how do you allot your budget? Where do my tuition dollars go? And I think that's a question that parents need to start asking, or students, whoever is paying that bill, who's ever paying that tuition bill, need to start asking, where do my tuition dollars go? Because tuition keeps going up and up, and we very seldom really stop and ask why, and ask where is that going. Now, administrators do important work, but it is kind of interesting when you see that huge jump in administrative costs, and you don't really see a huge jump in instructional costs. It's a partial answer to that question.
Right.
Where is money going?
What is the mission here?
Right. I do feel very strongly about UMass Lowell. I graduated with my bachelor's degree the same year as President Meehan did. So I'm not going to say what year that was, but it was a really good year.
Before that,
It was.
I gave him the last 3 credits he needed. He was short in political science.
Really?
I had just gone to grad school,
Wow.
and they had me coming back to teach almost right away.
Okay.
Wow. So you taught Marty Meehan.
I taught Marty.
Wow. Well, you taught
And
him well.
directed studies.
Oh, but I felt very positive, and I still feel very positive about the experience that I had. And I can couple it with a story of I took a couple of years off before I went to grad school, and I went to New England Conservatory. And at the time, there's a whole cluster of us who went right from UMass Lowell to the conservatory. I was on full scholarship, which was great, but what was wonderful was realizing that all of us did fantastic on all those remedial all those classes that you have to take, or all the tests, so we didn't have to take remedial. We had solid fundamental teaching, and it was a great, I think of UMass Lowell still as a great incubator for kids to grow as people, while at the same time growing intellectually and exploring the world and becoming grown-ups, becoming adults. I still feel strongly that the mission of the university of providing top level teaching and excelling, trying to go for excellence is a great mission. And I'm proud to be part of it.
Right. Well, I was there the last, in 73 to 75 as a student. I finished up there, and that's when they were merging.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Right, but South Campus particularly, their focus was teaching. Obviously, they had started as a normal school, teaching school.
Right.
So, you know, our professors, and when I got to BC, it was nothing compared to, I mean, the great teachers were.
It's a good school. It's got a very interesting history. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it really does.
Because I was coordinator of the merger planning board as a student. I had secretarial skills, so yeah, I saw the whole thing happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And it's in an interesting community, too. You know, I mean, it's got a lot going for it.
Right.
Well, that's why we were named one of the most underrated schools in the nation, I think. One of the best, best bargains and
Right.
Hidden gem. We're not so hidden anymore. We are a gem, though.
We are,
But-
definitely.
Yeah.
The diversity and.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, I
Right,
love that.
right. So I'm interested in seeing where we're going to go with Chancellor Maloney, because she is grounded. She started her career at UMass Lowell as within the grad school of education. So I believe education is fundamental to her, and
Yeah.
adjunct faculty are fundamental to teaching.
I think what we're really hoping for is, as Ellen was saying, it's a hardworking school. We know that our students are hardworking. We're hardworking. Yeah, we're all hardworking, and we want to continue to do that. But I think what we're trying to do, and I know what we've been trying to say in negotiations all this time, this 10 months we've been at the negotiating table, is we need to be treated like the professionals that we are. If adjuncts, do a great job of teaching, but they, like anybody, in any workplace, we're willing to work hard. Everybody's working hard, right? Everybody's doing more with less, and we're willing to do that. But we have to have the resources. We have to have we have offices, but we don't really have a private place to meet with our students.
That's right.
We don't really have a place to store our materials, things like that. Just the ability to maybe to take classes, things like that. And, pension, health insurance, that goes a long way. And that I think that's part of, to me, that's part of the social contract. That's what goes with a professional position, and that's what we don't have yet.
Right. Right. We do have, UMass Lowell does have an interesting history, but ultimately now we are UMass. So if we are UMass, we're branded UMass, and we're very proud of it, then we should be treated as UMass. And that goes with the real tangibles of wages and health benefits. We don't want anything more than what they already have. And our colleagues.
Considerably under what they're making.
It's considered. Yeah, it's about 40%. I think an adjunct at UMass Lowell starts at about 40% less than an adjunct. And I think they use the term non-tenure track. Not that matters that much, but in Amherst and in Boston, they start about 40% above where we are. And remember, they also have benefits. They have health insurance if they teach 2 classes
Each
semester, and they have pension and they have job security. So, they really, one of the things that they have there that I really, we've been working so hard to try to get here is they have a career path. They can actually start as an adjunct and work up to where they have a full-time job, and they have a job that they can live on. They can, 2 working people can support a family. And they can have some benefits, and they can retire from. So they can really make that their profession, their job, and that's what we're trying to achieve here at Lowell, at UMass Lowell. So you don't have this situation of people teaching 2 classes at this school and 2 classes at this school and 2 classes at this school, and then trying to grade something like 120 papers in a weekend. I mean, everybody's trying to give quality feedback, but by the 60th,
Yeah, I know. As an intro, the intro to American politics, since I do have a full-time job, and
Right.
I'd like to do others, but you need preparation time to
You
do
do,
that.
you do.
And
Yeah.
I have averaged 45 to 48 students in 2 classes. I usually teach 2 sections, so you end up with
That's a lot.
90 plus, and you
It's a
just
lot.
have to
Right.
adapt.
You
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
You definitely do.
And as I said, I mean, I think everybody's working harder today than they were, 20 years ago. But a friend of mine had never done adjunct teaching and was offered a position and loved it, but said, "Oh my God, that is so much work. That is so much preparation, so much grading." And it is. It's just the
right.
nature of the kind of work that we do.
There's a conservative estimate that for every 3-credit course, which is usually a 3-hour course, that's 45 hours within the classroom, and it's anywhere conservatively about 110 to 130 extra hours. Not extra hours, but above and beyond the classroom time because of the prep. And plus, you have to rewrite your curriculum, especially, let's say you're in sciences or history or even poli-sci. Things change, and you have to update it. What's good is we have a professional development fund, so we have our colleagues, our members, going off to conferences and presenting papers as representatives of UMass Lowell.
Well, that's new. We didn't have that
We
until
didn't
our
have
first
that
contract.
until our first contract.
Right. And it's really limited, too, in that we have 600 members. And right now, I think we're at a point where we've agreed to about $30,000 in that fund. So if everybody spent $1,000 a person, that would fund 30 people
Right.
out of 600. So it's really good that we have it.
It's
I would
a step
love to
in the
see
right
it.
direction.
I would love to
Expand.
see it expanded a lot. But yeah, and I think any good teacher, you really do change it. I mean, you change the curriculum every time. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
I do.
Right.
You know,
Just
just
change the assignments.
exactly, because you're always
to suit-
tweaking it.
Right,
and-
right.
Yeah.
And usually at the end, I don't just count on the evaluations. I usually use my last day to ask them, well, what do you think we could do
Exactly.
better? What do you think we could change?
Right.
What do you think worked?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking as I'm sitting here, it's 3 women, and I'm thinking, did you have statistics on what percentage of adjuncts are women? Do we know that?
Well, here at the university, we thought it would be.
We need to wrap up in about a minute. so-
Okay.
okay, all
Okay.
right.
It's
Finish that thought.
Okay, it's mostly women.
It's only about, no, it's really 55, 45.
Okay.
I think because of so much of what we have at
Oh, it's
Lowell is the
technical.
sciences.
Right.
Is the sciences, and that still
Right.
is
Right.
many more
Yeah.
males.
Yeah.
This has been a fantastic half hour. I want to thank
This
you
was
very
fun.
much, Gloria.
Yes, and I've enjoyed speaking with you. We don't get to see each other often.
Yeah.
We just say we're on campus
Yeah,
at the same
yeah.
time,
Right,
that kind
right.
of thing.
That was great.
And the rest of us really appreciate what you
Oh.
and the negotiating team are doing.
Oh.
And,
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is rewarding to
It
know that
is.
you can make a difference.
It is. I'm not a morning person, but I teach at 8 a.m. and I go there saying, why am I doing this? But by the time I leave the classes, it's like, I'm like filled
You're
with
jazzed.
energy
Yeah.
because the students are just wonderful.
They are.
It's-
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
Makes it worthwhile.
It does.
Now, if people
Does.
want to know more about the Union of Adjunct Faculty at UMass Lowell, I think Tess has the
UAFUML.org. It's UAFUML.org.
All right. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Thinking Out Loud.